This week's blog post is my favorite photos from 2022. These are my favorites from among the thousands of photos I took last year in Colorado, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. To make the cut, the subject of the photo had to be significant for me, and the photo had to be nicely composed and lit. All of these photos are copyright 2022 Diane L. Durante. There's a link on the blog post to favorite photos from previous years. This one, of course, is New York, just after sunset, from the Chart House restaurant in Weehawken, New Jersey. Over here is the Time Warner Center. These are a couple of the new pencil buildings in the high 50s. This is the Empire State Building with a blue crown, and this is the massive Hudson Yards development in the 30s. Just north of New York City, in Yonkers, is the Untermeyer Gardens, which are particularly beautiful in the spring and summer. There are blog posts on my site with more photos of the gardens. One of my favorite sculptures that stands outdoors in New York City, the Untermeyer Fountain, which is now in Central Park's Conservatory Garden, was originally on this estate, the Untermeyer estate. Moving on to Colorado, the cold zone. This is Breckenridge, Colorado. My husband taught me that when you're downhill skiing, you take the chairlift to the top, and then you stop and look around and say, "Oh, what a beautiful mountain," and then you tackle the downhill. Every time I look at the photo on the left, I hear the hiss of chassing, which means to make a fast, straight downhill run on skis or a snowboard. On the right is a sunset in Breckenridge. Mountains make sunsets even prettier. I don't remember ever having visited Valley Forge before last summer, which is very odd since I grew up barely 2 hours away from it. Or perhaps I visited when I was very young and the site didn't have the profound effect that it did this time. Walking in the footsteps of Washington, Hamilton, and the other leaders of the American Revolution struck me with awe. Washington and most of his staff were quartered in this small farmhouse during the brutal winter of 1777 to 78. In the room on the right, for many months, much of the day-to-day business of the American Revolution was conducted. Now we're moving on to Florida. Cedar Lake Woods and Gardens in Williston is a beautiful multi-level botanical garden painstakingly created by one man from an old limestone quarry. And I've given you a link to the site of that, the website. This is the Hudson Grotto in Hudson, Florida. It's nice that someone has found a good use for Florida sinkholes, but they look like creatures from the Green Lagoon. On the left is Tampa Bay Downs. I'm always pleased when I get a clear shot of horses who are moving this quickly. And on the right is the main building of the University of Tampa. Yes, the Victorians sometimes overdid things, but this Gilded Age hotel makes me smile. To attract the widely traveled Victorians to Tampa, Florida, railroad magnate Henry B. Plant built a 511-room hotel in the Moorish Revival style. It's now the main building of the University of Tampa, and it has a small museum on the ground floor that shows you what the hotel looked like. Miami. Miami people are a little too much like New York City leftists for me to love being there, but the city has a couple spectacular sites. The one on the left is still under construction, and there are some nice skyscrapers, although it's not Manhattan. I love how this one looks at night. Next up, a few favorite works from the James Museum. I've given you a link to several posts on the bronzes and the paintings at the James, and a few of them will also appear in favorite recommendations for the year. This is Vic Payne's Into the Wild from 2014. On the left is Joe Beeler's Night Song, 1989, and on the right a painting by Ray Swanson, Wanna Share the Fry Bread, from 1994. There's more about that in the posts on the James. The Imagine Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida is dedicated to pieces created by modern masters of glassworking. I've given you a link to more on Rob Stern's Windstar series. And on the lower right is one that I really like for the color, and I keep reading it as Cliffs with Birds, although that's not what the docent told me. There's a link to the artist's website with other works by him on the blog post. This is, of course, Michelangelo. There's an exhibition on tour that shows full-size photos of all the paintings on the Sistine ceiling. Not only do you not have to fly to Italy to see them, you don't have to crane your neck because they're all displayed at ground level. The exhibition is traveling in the US and Canada at least until mid-2023. And finally, ending with the ridiculous rather than the sublime, worlds collide images always make me laugh. Santa Claus and Grogu and the snowman. This is from Dade City, Florida. DianeDurantewriter.com has hundreds of posts on sculpture, painting, architecture, and my other obsessions. To join the Sunday Recommendations email list, visit the URL that's on the screen or email me. And you can say, "Well done, Diane," or support my work and receive rewards by means of the tip jar on DianeDurantewriter.com. As always, thank you for listening.